André Vandenberg.
My mic. Is that? Oh, it's
Oh,
already
it's already
on.
on. Yeah,
Okay.
we're filming.
Oh, okay.
So you and I met in Asheville, North Carolina, off of Facebook when we were both building time.
Yeah, you posted on a Facebook group about looking for time builders, or you needed a safety pilot because you were working on your instrument rating.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I was time building, and I said, "Oh, I'll respond to this guy's message." And next thing you know, we met at the airport and went and flew, and you're 150.
I remember when you we were just about to get in and start up, and you were like, "Wait, can I see your pilot certificate really quick?"
Yeah, I do remember that. That was kind of an awkward moment.
Yeah, dude. So you went a little more of a traditional route. You went. Were you 141 or 61?
I was primarily 61. I did
Okay.
141 for my private,
Yeah.
and then I realized I didn't really need to do the 141 route. There wasn't a benefit for me,
Yeah.
and so I did the rest of my ratings part 61.
Nice. And then you started instructing initially at Asheville, and then
No, so I got my CFI and CFII, and then I started instructing down in Greenville, South Carolina, out of downtown Greenville, GMU, um, and instructed there for a couple months before I started instructing over at Cirrus Aircraft.
so what was it? What was it like being an instructor in Greenville? What?
It was actually pretty rewarding. I mean, we were super busy. I would drive an hour and 15 minutes down there. I would do 4 flights usually a day, 5 sometimes, and then drive back. And I did that about 6 days a week. Um, Super busy airport class for a class Delta, um, but yeah, it was really enjoyable. I met a lot of good people and made some actually long, like lifetime relationships with some of my students. So
Nice.
yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit to where you are now. You're flying for Atlas.
Yeah, I fly cargo for Atlas Air on the 777.
Okay. And so can you give everybody an overview of what your ratings and certifications are?
Yeah, so ATP multi-engine typed in the CL-65, which is a CRJ 7900 series and 200, and then 777 type rated, and then I'm also CFI double I as well.
Nice. So after instructing for at GMU, you went to
Yeah,
Cirrus.
I went and worked at Cirrus Aircraft as a factory flight instructor. So whenever an individual purchases a new airplane from Cirrus, they come to Knoxville, Tennessee to be trained in that airplane. They get 3 days included with the purchase of their airplane. So we spend 3 days teaching them how to fly the Cirrus way, teaching the Garmin avionics. A lot of them are repeat owners, so a lot of them know how to fly them already.
Mhm.
Or sometimes they're the first time Cirrus owners, but everyone already, for the most part, knew how to fly. So it's just a matter of teaching them how to fly the Cirrus way.
Just transition training,
Yeah, exactly.
essentially.
Pretty much transition training. Yeah.
So the Cirrus way sounds like it's a
No,
little more encompassing than just transition training, though.
yeah, we have Cirrus has specific profiles and safety measures that they want people to follow,
Mhm.
and so we would train them how to fly the Cirrus in a pattern, how to fly an instrument approach. Um, so we had a syllabus that we followed, and we signed them off that they completed Cirrus's training, transition training.
So was it a pass fail thing?
Uh, it was really a pass fail thing,
Yeah.
uh, but some of them, their insurance required them to complete the course, and if a pilot was a new pilot or didn't quite have the experience, and we didn't feel comfortable signing them off that had completed the course, then we would take them home and have a local Cirrus instructor continue training with them.
So you'd fly with them to their home airport?
Yep. Yeah. So I would fly. I've flown from Tennessee to Arizona to take somebody home. I flew to Montana to help somebody get home. It wasn't always because they weren't competent in the aircraft. Some of them, were very competent in the aircraft, but maybe they were only a private pilot and the weather was bad and they needed to get home. And so, as a CFII, we would help get them home and also instruct them some more along the way.
So it seems a bit of an odd step to go from private pilot to a brand new Cirrus owner. Did that happen a lot?
Yeah, it's pretty. It was pretty common. You know, a
Really?
lot of them they want to get their private pilot's license, so they could fly. And Cirrus is such a great safety-oriented aircraft that a lot of individuals, that's their first airplane they bought. And as you know, a lot of people do their training in a 172.
Yeah.
Um, Cirrus does offer, courses for people to get their private pilot in a Cirrus from the day one,
Hmm.
but most of them don't do that. And so trying to teach them the transition from a 172 to a Cirrus a lot of times is a lot of airplane for some individuals.
So that's it's got a constant speed prop.
It does have a constant speed prop, but you don't have to do anything. It's all mechanically
Oh,
done for you. It's
nice.
all tied together.
So what are the big hurdles that you
Uh,
saw?
just like it's over 300 horsepower.
Oh yeah,
So a lot of times, people put in the turbocharged versions, especially,
yeah.
having to use their right rudder on takeoff, and then just staying ahead of the airplane.
Hmm.
It cruises. I mean, it cruises at 170 knots true, and so that's a big step from your
Yeah,
172 that's cruising at 115 knots true, I
yeah.
guess.
I
So
remember my first time coming into a terminal area in a Navajo doing 100 160 knots and 100 knots more than my 150 was used to doing. I was used to having a half an hour to get ready to land.
yeah, it's the same with like when I first started to learn how to fly a jet. Things happen so much faster,
Yep.
and that's where a lot of people just, if people are going to struggle moving up to faster and bigger aircraft, a lot of times the struggle is from the speed at which things happen. You just mentioned you used to have 30 minutes to get ready for an approach, and now
Yeah.
it happens really fast now. So
Yeah. Yeah. What did you find was helped people through that transition to a faster aircraft?
I just Cirrus's training materials are, I honestly would argue that they're some of the best in the world. We were great instructors, and we were trained really well from Cirrus to be a Cirrus instructor. I just think the combination of great instructors plus the training program, and people also they were really open to learning,
Yeah.
and so I just made it pretty smooth most of the time.
I've found that that's a huge thing. Well, like how much your student wants to learn.
Yeah, for sure. I have almost 1,000 hours of dual given, and the best students are the ones that are open to criticism and
Yeah.
critique and can take it and apply it to the next flight. The ones that think they may know exactly how things are done or push back on you are the ones that don't always succeed. Um, so
Do you think there's a balance there? Because it seems to me like there's a certain level of ego that's required to at least excel in flying. Because like it seems to me that that's one of the core driving factors. I mean, like for me, it's you know I'm a pilot. It feels good to say that. It feels good to you know that I'm a higher status, and that's something that like during training I had to very specifically you know shove that aside and really swallow negative feedback. Do you think that there's an optimal blend of ego, or there's that it can be accomplished satisfactorily without a strong ego? What?
I don't think you need a strong ego necessarily, but you need to have a lot of confidence.
Okay,
Uh, I guess confidence and ego maybe go hand in hand.
they're
But
close, but
yeah, because I feel like strong egos are more likely to get themselves into more trouble. Oh, I can do this, I can do this.
yeah,
Um, but you want to have the confidence that you can do it, and there's a difference between, I think, being confident and having a bad ego towards what you're trying to approach. But when things, you don't get like in aviation, especially when you start getting paid to fly,
mhm,
you're not getting paid for, you are getting paid to get the aircraft from point A to point B, but your training is really for when things go wrong, and that's when you're really going to earn your paycheck, is when something goes wrong or on a bad weather day.
Yeah.
And you have to have confidence to handle what's going to get thrown at you, which I don't I don't know if confidence and ego are the same thing.
Yeah, I think you're drawing an interesting distinction there, where like ego is maybe doesn't require a track record, whereas confidence is like, hey, I have done this. I've shot approaches to minimums in gusty weather. I I know I can do this if I stay on the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus ego is like, oh, of course I can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course I can do that. Maybe you haven't, you know, been dealt that card yet to have to deal with it, and um, just be like, oh yeah, I can land this airplane at a 30-knot crosswind, but I've never done it before.
Yeah,
That's not a great behavior, or
yeah.
mindset. It's okay. I've landed it in 15-knot crosswinds, and I've landed it in a 20-knot crosswind. So, and I know I can do that pretty well. So now let's. I feel that I'm ready to do the 30-knot crosswind. That's confidence versus the ego of I've never landed this airplane in a crosswind, but I can do it because I'm a great pilot.
That one of the things the chief pilot up north told me when I first started out. I asked him. He told me all these stories of how pilots had failed up there for one reason or another, and I said, "All right, like you've told me all the bad stuff. What is it that you need in order to succeed?" And he said, "Overwhelming self confidence and nagging self doubt."
Mm.
Like you need to know that you can shoot an approach down to minimums and make it in when you've got uh, ice fog and tailwind and there's low level wind shear. But you also need to be thinking, hey, did I set that altimeter right? Do I have everything set up exactly right? Am I following a green line or a purple line? Like do I have everything exactly right?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that's a great mindset to have when it comes to aviation. You know, big egos can kill you. Though, what's the saying? There's old pilots, but there's not old bold pilots.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. See that a lot around here, especially out west where there's a lot of cowboy stuff in western Alaska.
I feel like that's probably when people think of aviation in Alaska. That's what they think. They think there's just people flying around Alaska, yeehawing it. People flying without their pilot's license, which I'm sure there are.
100%. It's probably half the pilots here don't have a certificate.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
yeah. So after Cirrus, you went to.
Yeah, so I got my 1,500 hours,
Mhm,
and I got hired by PSA, wholly owned regional for American Airlines.
mhm. And what was that like?
Uh, it was I made it my dream to become an airline pilot. I was flying passengers. I was flying a jet. It was awesome. Uh, I did not enjoy commuting.
Yeah,
I did not enjoy having to be on reserve and sit hot reserve at the airport. Um, it was everything that I thought it was going to be, but also wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be.
yeah.
It was an adjustment being gone from home. That was tough.
So what for those who aren't airline pilots, can you talk to us a little bit about the lifestyle of a regional pilot and what it is once you get into it?
Yeah, so a regional pilot, all the airlines in the United States, they operate on a hub and spoke system.
Mhm.
So you have your big Bravo airports, Charlotte, Atlanta, JFK, Dallas, LA, all the big airports that you think of. And the regional's job are to get people from the small towns, such as where you used to live, where I live now, Asheville, and get them to the hub. So Delta wants to get people from Asheville to Atlanta. American wants to get people from Asheville to Charlotte,
Mhm.
and it's more cost effective for the main lines to hire the regionals to do that job. So all on a normal day, a normal trip is about 4 days long,
Mhm.
and you fly 3 or 4 legs a day, and it's a lot of okay. We're gonna start my trip in Charlotte, and I'm gonna fly passengers probably back to their hometown or wherever they're going. They're at a small town. So Asheville or Charlotte to Asheville. And then we're going to pick up another load of passengers from Asheville, and we're going to fly them back to Charlotte. And then from Charlotte, we're going to fly to Myrtle Beach, for example. And then we're going to fly back to Charlotte, and then we're going to maybe fly out somewhere else. Or maybe once we get back to Charlotte, maybe we end our day by flying just to Myrtle Beach or flying to Daytona Beach. And then we wake up the next morning, take passengers back to Charlotte, and then start the process over again. But you always start your trip in your base, and you always end your trip in your base. But during your trip, you're going to be coming in and out of that base over and over again as a regional pilot.
Gotcha.
And then the main airlines like Delta, American, United, they're doing big airports to big airports and destinations. So you'll get to your hub in Atlanta from your regional or Charlotte, wherever you had to go into, and now you're going to get on a big jet, and they're going to take you to the city that you're trying to get to.
So like Atlanta to LAX.
Exactly. Yeah, not many. You won't see a lot of regional jets going hub to hub. You won't see a lot of regional jets going Charlotte to Atlanta. We did do that route at the airline that I was at, but it was to get American Airlines passengers back from Atlanta to Charlotte or vice versa.
Gotcha. Yeah. So your average hop then is what, like less than an hour?
Yeah, a lot of times less than an hour. Sometimes you'd spend more time on the ground than you would in the air.
Yeah.
So I got to fly from Charlotte to Asheville. It's a 12-minute flight.
Jesus.
You go 10,000 feet, cruise at 300 knots all the way to Asheville, and you're done in 12 to 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And then if I remember correctly, the airline wanted us to be able to get to the airplane and off the gate within 45 minutes when you're at a hub. And then when you were at an outstation, such as Asheville, I keep using Asheville, just it's easy. They want you to be able to drop the passengers off, load the new passengers on, and be leaving within 30 minutes.
Jeez. And that's a turn.
That's called a turn. A turn is where you go from an airport, such as your hub, you go from that airport to another airport and back to the hub.
And so during a turn, you're not just dumping passengers and getting new passengers, but the cabin crew has to go through, or the flight attendants have to go through and straighten it back out. And
yep. So at every airport you go to, a cleaning crew comes on, cleans the aircraft. The flight attendants are restocking supplies if they need that, and then the pilots are getting the aircraft ready for the next flight. So
you're as a pilot, you're in there briefing the weather, the NOTAMs, just everything to go.
Yeah. Right. So we set up the FMS with the route and our expected clearance, and then we verify that clearance once we get it and stuff. But you set that up. You're going to brief your fuel, any MEL items on the aircraft. You're going to brief your taxi plan, the departure procedure, speeds, altitude restrictions, that sort of thing. You're going to verify the route that you loaded in the GPS match, or the box, we call it the box, matches what the flight plan is, because don't want to get a pilot deviation because you're not on the correct route.
Yeah.
And yeah, briefing, hotspots, NOTAMs. So it's the exact same stuff that you do from a private pilot,
But it's just all like back to back,
yeah,
doing
a lot faster,
yeah.
And everything is done from a flow and then backed up with a checklist.
So, tell me more about that. Like, tell me about, are they company flows? Do you develop your own flows? What do you learn them from other pilots?
Yeah, so they're all company flows.
Okay.
The company comes up with the flow for for example, a before start sequence, before start checklist. The captain will call for the before start checklist. You'll do whatever those items are required on the flow. You'll do them all, and then you'll read the checklist and confirm that each item has been done that you're supposed to have done.
Okay. So you're using it as a checklist. It's
a checklist. Yeah. Whereas on your private pilot, I would teach students that were going to the airlines, I would teach them that same concept. Hey, here's a flow, do this, and then do the checklist. But really, as a private in the private pilot general aviation world, those checklists are more read and do.
Yeah.
You take the checklist out, and it says, "Oh, battery switch on," and you turn the battery switch on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at the airline, if that was your checklist, you more than likely had already turned the battery switch on,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would read the checklist and confirm that you did it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with the flow, that allows you to do all of the things you need to do in a certain sequence and in a smooth fashion, and then just verify that you didn't miss anything.
Exactly.
Right? That's kind of the concept.
Yeah, exactly. And there's before start flows, before taxi flows, before takeoff flows, descent flows, arrival flows.
So, have you, in your training, did you use, did you develop any flows for private pilot or uh, instrument?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I did, but it wasn't as standardized as the airlines.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, now and I used to have all those sequences memorized that I used to do, but now I still fly GA, but I don't fly GA as much as I used to. So I'm proficient, but I'm not as proficient as I used to be in GA.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go fly, I'm doing a lot more read and do than I used to.
Yeah.
Just because I don't do it as much, and I don't want to, mess anything up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So then after PSA, you got hired on at Atlas.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was at PSA for about 10 months, and I wanted to expand my opportunities and my experience, and I put an application into Atlas,
Mm-hmm.
and was very fortunate to get hired and fly in a 777.
Yeah. And so now you're living in Asheville. You're based out of LA. You frequently come through Anchorage.
Yeah, so Anchorage is like a really central location for cargo operations operating out of Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows Asian carriers and U.S. carriers the opportunity to carry more payload and less
Mm-hmm.
fuel. So no cargo ever gets offloaded in Anchorage.
Gotcha.
So every plane that you see, whether it's an Asian carrier or U.S. carrier, they come to Anchorage. They've probably just flown between 9 and 12 hours, so that crew is tired. So they're going to swap crews out,
Mm-hmm.
and the airplane's going to refuel, and it's going to go on to its final destination.
Gotcha.
So that's why on any trip I come through Anchorage multiple times.
So it's used as fuel and not just an ETOPS overflight requirement.
Yeah, we don't use it as an ETOPS overflight airport. Okay. 9 times out of 10, our ETOPS airport is going to be Cold Bay.
Oh, okay. That keeps you a lot further south then.
Yeah, so ETOPS is just a regulation that allows airplanes to operate when they're more than 60 minutes away from an airport, a suitable airport.
Right.
But yeah, Anchorage doesn't ever get used as an ETOPS airport.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Because of Dutch.
Because of the duration, because when you're in Alaska, you're always within 60 minutes of a suitable airport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And ETOPS airports, the alternate has to be within 180 minutes from you.
Aren't they're now extended ETOPS, right? Up to 240 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, there are extended ETOPS operations. We don't have, Atlas doesn't have authorization to do that. I think it has to do with fire suppression systems. I'm not exactly sure how you get the ETOPS extensions, but they are there.
Interesting. Yeah. So what have been some of the more noticeable differences between working for Atlas and working for PSA?
Well, one, I fly international now, so I had to learn ETOPS, and I had to learn how different countries operate differently than the United States. And being further away from home is different.
Yeah.
But I would say overall, for me at least, and everyone's going to be different when what they're looking for in their quality of life. But for me, Atlas has been better for me because I get long chunks at home.
Yeah.
So
and you've got a couple of kids you can take care of when you go back.
Exactly. The wife holds down the fort where I'm gone, and I take care of them when I get back.
Nice. That's the dream right there.
It is.
So we've got a cat going bonkers in the kitchen right now. I'm actually going to stop and check on that. We'll cut this out. Get out.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. So, what do you have? Do you have some stories from along the way that are memorable?
Uh, Stories from along the way that are memorable. This is gonna sound super cliche,
No, go for it.
but looking back on it, the first flight that I ever did as a private pilot, had
Yeah.
my wife flying. Looking back on it, I was so dumb.
Yeah.
Like looking back on like the lack of experience that I had,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like one of the most amazing things as far as my aviation journey goes, just because she
Yeah.
was so heavily involved in supporting me.
Yeah.
So looking back on that, obviously your first solo,
Yeah.
that was always cool. They switched the runways on me at Asheville actually during my solo.
No.
Yeah,
Like while you're in the pattern,
I
or
was in the
when you're.
pattern.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they switched the runways. They actually switched what direction I was going in the pattern. So I think I was making left traffic on my first touch and go,
Oh.
and they switched me to right traffic.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really done right traffic that much.
Oh yeah, because you were on 1-7 where the right traffic's up against the
No, I was
mountains.
on 3-5.
Oh, okay.
And I just
Roger.
they run left traffic primarily off of 3-5.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And then it landed, and the control tower knew that I was doing a solo, and so they were like, "Was that your first solo?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was." And somebody from the airlines got on. I was like, "Congratulations!" So that was
Aw,
super cool.
dude, that's pretty awesome. I love hearing uh, student pilot solo
It is
on the
awesome.
radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to take Elizabeth and Logan, my wife and kid, flying at the regionals. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think you posted a
Yeah, I posted
picture.
a picture.
Yeah,
I had to go up in the cockpit, which was cool.
that's pretty rad, dude.
Yeah.
He was how old when?
I guess he was uh, probably 1.5 at that point. I don't know if it was 2 yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 1.5. Yeah, he turned 2 this year, so he was about 1.5.
Nice.
Yeah,
Dude, that's awesome.
it was pretty memorable.
Nice. So, along the way, have you had any incidents or
John, I'm gonna knock on some wood right now. I have not had
no?
anything uh, that I've had smooth sailing so far.
Nice.
I like to keep it that way.
Yeah. What about like unexpected weather or?
The only thing I've had to do because of weather is hold for a little while,
Yeah.
but I haven't had to divert or anything like that because of weather.
Did you have to do a hold entry? Do you actually have to do one of those?
Nope, it was when I was at the regionals, and I just programmed the
Just
box.
typed it in and you're good. Perfect. Man, I don't know what I'd do if I had to hand fly an approach hold and figure out or hand fly
Yeah, I
hold.
don't know, man. It would be I could do it, but it would be a
Sloppy.
it'd be a little sloppy. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
let's get it done.
there's a reason they clear a lot of space for those.
That's true.
Yeah. I remember I was flying for I was getting trained in the 207, and we were down in Kenai, and one of the holds in Kenai is just out over the Cook Inlet, and they put us at 2,000 feet, circling over the Cook Inlet, and I was like, man, there's
You're holding single
over the water. They eventually climbed us up to like 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and it was like we had about 4 seconds in that hold where we might have been able to make land, but
they do that in Florida to you too. If you're coming in on approaches in single engine, they'll take you out over the Anchorage and bring you around. Like, no, I don't want to go that far.
No.
Because I think it's the same thing. You're like 2,000 feet, and so you're hosed.
Yeah, dude. Like airplanes don't glide all that far. Like
They don't.
no. So what about like lessons that you've learned from your journey? Well, as far as like attitudes or ways of learning more efficiently.
I want to say like learning more efficiently, but it goes back to our conversation earlier about the confidence and ego.
Yeah.
Be open and receptive to learning. If
Yeah.
someone gives you a tip or a pointer or technique, be willing to try that technique out if it's something different than what you've been doing, because you might like it. Don't just shrug it off and say, "Oh, I'm not doing it that way because I've done it this way for so long." Maybe try it that way, and you might find it works better for you. Um, and just stay. It's a grind.
Yeah.
It's a grind trying to get to a lot of people trying to get their 1,500 hours and get the next rating, get the next rating. It takes time and money, and it can be frustrating, setbacks along the way. But
Yeah.
just you have a reason why you got into aviation,
Mhm.
and just keep yourself reminding of what your end goal is, and keep grinding towards that goal.
So as far as the grind towards that goal, you did you fund your training 100% yourself?
I did, yeah. So I can talk about that journey. I decided that I wanted to get into aviation, and um, learned that was going to cost a significant amount of money. And I didn't have a lot of money in my 401k at the time, and I thought that it would be the best idea to cash it out and pay for my ratings. And so that's what we did. I cashed out my 401k, and I paid for my private and instrument rating.
Nice.
And then actually took out a line of credit,
Yeah.
uh, and withdrew from that line of credit as I needed for flying, and I would always go back and pay that line of credit off as quickly as I could.
Nice.
So I got into real estate for a brief period of time during COVID, and that helped out to pay for my flying.
Mhm.
I just try to pay as I went, per se.
So how old were you when you started flight training?
29.
Nice. Yeah.
I started November like 27th of 2019.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, you and I didn't realize we were so close in age.
yeah,
Uh,
34.
yeah. Yeah. We started pretty much at the same time in the same
Yeah,
part in
I
life.
think you had started. You started a
I,
little
a
bit.
little bit later, like my first flight was in December of
Okay.
19, and then my first lesson was in January of 2020.
Did
So
you did you do a lesson before you bought your airplane, or did you buy the airplane knowing that you were like, I'm gonna learn to fly on buying this airplane. I'm gonna.
so I no, I actually had my private before I bought the airplane, but I my friend took me out on a flight. My friend, an acquaintance, a vague acquaintance, mentioned to someone else that he had an airplane, and I interrupted their conversation, and I was like, "I'll go flying with you," and he was like, "Okay." I was like, "How's Saturday work?" He was like, "Okay, I'll take you up," and so he took me up, and that was it. And I signed up for flight school and got all the way through private pilot doing it 141, and I it was just monstrously expensive. So I kept looking up how to make things cheaper, and the number one thing was to buy your own airplane. And the first time I mentioned it to Aubrey, she laughed at me. But you just got to normalize those things. You just got to keep saying it until it sounds less ridiculous. And eventually, I got her to the point where I could show her a PowerPoint on the financial benefits of airplane ownership. And
Nice. I tried talking Elizabeth into buying an airplane, and she didn't buy into that. That
no,
was crazy.
yeah,
In hindsight, it would have worked out for us, I think.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, that was the single best move.
Did you did you make money off of selling an airplane,
Yeah,
or did you just get the money back that you had
no,
invested in flying?
so I made money off the airplane, a good chunk off the airplane, but I still with all of my flying and the college degree, I ended up owing 22,000 afterwards.
Okay, and you did your private instrument and commercial on that plane.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and yeah, and tail wheel, and that was it.
Oh, that's right. I
Yeah,
remember that thing was expensive.
it was not fun on the ground.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So oh, you were obviously on Facebook bumming around for.
I don't.
What
split.
Facebook group was that even on?
I don't know. The CAN, Carolina
Oh yeah, Carolina
Aviators
Navy.
Network.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to find somebody to split time with,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was on that group, I guess, and
Now,
saw your post.
did you do that a lot? Did you do that with any other pilots?
You're the only pilot that I split time with.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I did. I knew that I was gonna have to pay for the flying anyway.
Yeah.
So for a lot of my time building, I could have saved a lot of money probably
Hmm.
if I would have split time with other people.
Hmm.
Um, but I used it as an excuse to go explore with Elizabeth.
Nice.
And so I was like, well, I'm gonna pay for this time anyway.
Hmm.
We might as well make a trip of it.
Nice.
So that's a lot of my time building those stories like that, flying to the beach to get dinner and flying back.
Yeah. Dude, that's such a cool time in the flight training where you're just building time and you get to go do the $100 hamburger
That's
8 times a week.
that is literally the best part about. If I had, you're right. And you asked me earlier with like favorite moments and stuff. Probably the time building phase is the most exciting phase in your aviation journey,
Yeah.
and that's where I really struggle with students that maybe go to these, big flight schools that can get all your ratings in 9 months. Is you
Yeah.
miss out on the opportunity to experience flying airplanes. They just because they're all about grinding it out, get it done as fast as you can. Which I agree with
Yeah.
trying to get it done as fast as you can, but enjoy that journey along the way. So, you and I were flying 3 and 4 times a week,
Yeah.
but we were making the most of it, having fun while doing it.
Yeah. We're having a freaking blast, dude. What are some of your favorite airports that you went to during that phase?
I really like going to St. Simon's Island.
Same time. Where's
That's
that?
down in Georgia, South Georgia, near the
Yeah.
Florida border.
Nice.
Got 2 runways, great barbecue.
Nice.
Not on the field, but you had to walk a quarter mile. It's a great barbecue.
Yeah.
Um, I really enjoyed going to Jackson County Airport in West North Carolina.
Yeah.
134 Alpha, I think maybe. Um, and I really like Asheville Airport. I
Yeah.
really like going into Asheville.
Yeah. It's a kind of unique airport. Like the airspace is unique, and then the winds are really unique there. I didn't realize until I got my private certificate and started going off on my own. But with the Venturi there, you don't get a whole lot of crosswind landings.
You really don't get any crosswind land. I didn't have any crosswind experience once I got my private.
Yep.
Um, I remember when I went down to Greenville, so
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was going to do my instrument rating down in Greenville, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and I went down there to get checked out in an airplane. I don't know, maybe 80 hours, and the checkout flight was from GMU to Pickens County
Mm-hmm.
and back, and I don't know, it was pretty windy that day, and it was pretty crosswindy at Pickens County. It was atrocious. And I don't know how I got signed off, but I got signed off. And that was like my first time having to really deal with crosswind. I really
Yeah.
didn't get good at crosswind landings until I got my CFI.
Really?
I don't know if that's because this just took that long to get exposed to the crosswinds because of
Mhm.
Asheville,
Yeah.
or what. But yeah,
But you're also teaching, and that has its own. You have to. Teaching makes you learn.
teaching does
Right.
make you learn, and uh, when a student doesn't know how to land yet, or the wind conditions are out of their ability level at that
Mhm.
time, you have no choice but to learn it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you do learn it, but you learn it in small steps because
Hmm.
you have personal minimums as well as an instructor.
Right.
And if you knew like, oh, the crosswinds today are going to be X number,
Hmm.
I probably should take my student flying because I'm the one that's going to have to land, and that's beyond my abilities right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you're flying GA, what technique do you use in a crosswind landing? Do you uh, forward slip? Do you crab, decrab?
I just crab and then decrab at the end.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like the forward slip. I just think it feels really weird to be cross controlled coming into land.
Yeah.
So I prefer the crab and then just decrab in the flare.
I do the same thing because especially at such low speeds, I don't like being cross, and it's like completely unrecoverable if you have
Yeah,
low level wind shear.
yeah, I don't like it. And then the airlines are going to teach you the same thing. You're going to decrab in the flare.
Really?
The 777, you can actually land it side loaded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's completely okay. Boeing actually said it's completely okay to land it side loaded.
so like, is there a degree limitation on crap? You just like slam it in.
But we all get it.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So what do you see for the future? Like what it seems like you're loving it at Atlas.
Yeah, I really like it. Don't really have any plans right now to leave.
Yeah,
If I did leave, it'd probably be to go to carrying passengers again
yeah.
for one of the major carriers. But as of right now, I have no plans to leave Atlas.
What about buying an airplane? You
That
got
is definitely on the cards.
Yeah.
That is definitely on the cards.
What are you looking at?
Well, it bounces around. It changes on a daily basis. But something fast that has a decent payload, and I really want to buy a Cirrus.
Yeah.
The newer ones are out of our price range, so maybe like a Gen 2 or Gen 3.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of expensive, but maybe one day or with a partner or something like that. But
Yeah.
buying an airplane is definitely on our things that we want to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Andre, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, and it was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.